Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajrakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajrakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, well, this looks like our Tuesday taco crowd. Sorry about last week. My voice was gone. I couldn't. Yeah, so was I. Yeah, but devotees, maybe some tea from what is it? Not Venugreek. Something. I think it is some seed. Not. Yeah, it worked. It worked. That's the point. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this third day of February 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 16 still, the divine and demoniac natures, and text 22 or 21? 22, okay. So before I read 22, I'll read 21 because he talks about these three gates of hell. And I'll just read that text 21 translation. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man and woman should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. Okay, text 22. Etar vimukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhir naraha acharati atmanaha shreyas tato yati param gatim etar vimukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhir naraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Prem Gopal. Etar vimukta kaunteya. No, dvarais. Tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Jad. Etar vimukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha atmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Eddie, you want to try? Not yet. Prabhu? Etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Ladies. Etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Go ahead. Etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Etaiva mukta kaunteya tamo dvarais tribhinaraha acharat yatmanak shreyas tato yati param gatim. Anyone online?
Etaiva mukta kaunteya
Etaiva mukta kaunteya
tamo dvarais tribhinaraha
tamo dvarais tribhinaraha
acharat yatmana shreyas
acharat yatmanak shreyas
tato yati param gatim.
tato yati param gatim. Etai, from these, vimuktaha, being liberated, kaunteya, O son of Kunti, tamaha, dvarai, from the gates of ignorance, tribihi, of three kinds, Naraha, a person, achadati, performs atmanaha, for the self, shreyaha, benediction, tataha, thereafter, yati, he goes, param, to the supreme, gatim, destination. Translation. The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. Purport. One should be very careful of these three enemies to human life, lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoined in the Vedic literature. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. In the Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of self-realization. This self-realization is perfected in devotional service. In that devotional service, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life, called the caste system and the spiritual order system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society, and if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we're almost at the end of this chapter. We have 2 more verses, and I hope to cover them tonight.
I have one doubt.
What's up, Vanessa?
Here. Is it param or parang?
The last 2 words of the verse?
Param or parang?
Are you talking about tato yati param gatim?
Yes.
It's param. Param gatim. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, where have we been in this chapter? So, it starts off with a nice description of extensive description of the saintly qualities, if you recall. So, after all, the title is Divine and Demoniac. And those qualities are, as Prabhupada explains, divided into 4, starting with the qualities a sannyasi is supposed to have, and then a grihastha, and a vanaprastha, and a brahmachari. But they're all positive, you know. And then he lists the demonic qualities. Yes. And it's very clear that the demonic qualities are going to keep us bound to this world, and as we've heard very succinctly in these last few verses, lead one down to a lot of suffering. So the point of the Shastra is that it gives us not only this list of qualities, but a means by which we can cultivate the auspicious qualities and be able to avoid the bad qualities. That's the whole idea. In Lord Chaitanya's teaching to Sanatana Goswami, he says that all the Vedas, including the books we have, the main books, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they basically deal with 3 things: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Now, it's important to know what those words mean. Sambandha, the word bandha is there, which indicates something. It sounds like the English word bond, or it's our relationship. So Sambandha includes who is God, who are we, what is this world, and what is the relationships between those? How did this world come about in the creation? So in other words, we know, just like the Bhagavad Gita, it begins basically with the instruction of, you're not that body, you're pure spirit. Dehinosminyata dehe. And this is such a wonderful verse Krishna gives, because anybody who thinks about this, They can be completely unaware of any Vedic knowledge or anything. Can suddenly have a light bulb go on top of his head, because it describes transmigration of the soul in this very body. Because that's the basic point of philosophy that one has to believe, faith. Otherwise, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. If this is our only life, you see, and then after it we don't exist anymore, then hey, YOLO, baby, you know, and FOMO. I don't want to miss out. Let me enjoy as much as possible. And that's more or less the standard atheistic worldview, you know. So that's the first thing we have to understand. And we have to understand it on faith, because we can't really intuit it. You can't scientifically prove transmigration, although there is some actual proof of it, you know, near-death experience like that. But once you know, so Arjuna has also shown us the model of how to approach the guru. Krishna is the guru in this case. So he was arguing. At first he was arguing. He had his own worldview. He had his very strong desire. Now, to place it in the category of lust, anger, or greed, I'm not sure. But it's still material. And it was all based on the bodily conception of life. He was thinking, oh, I have all of these intimate relationships, especially with Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, my teacher, and Bhishma Dev, my grandfather figure who helped raise us from children. You know, they're on the other side. I don't want to kill them. Even if I win the kingdom, you know, rule of the earth, it'll be soaked with the blood of them and other people who I love. So how am I going to enjoy it, you see? So he says, therefore I don't want to fight. You see that? So it all comes down to that. No, I shall not fight. He drops his bow, sits down on the chariot rather than says, okay, let's go, Krishna. No, he sits down and he's distraught. So in that condition, he takes the very instructive step of surrendering to Krishna. He's not just talking to Krishna as a friend or as an advisor. He says, now I am your shishya, I am your disciple, and please instruct me and tell me how I can act for my ultimate good and my ultimate welfare. That's the Karpa and the Dosha. It's a very important verse, second chapter, verse 7. So then, you know, every word is so significant. The word shishya, you know, let's get into the Sanskrit a minute. So shishya, each Sanskrit word has a root, right? Those who from India, you study a little Sanskrit, they have a root to it. Like the word giridhari, you know, where is that from? So the word dhari means to support, to lift, the lifter of the hill, right? That's the same root, dri, as the word dharma, which is what is meant to support our life, you see. It's the real support of proper life, dharma. That which is the essential nature of something. That's its dharma. I'll give this example I've given 100 times before because I've given these classes so long. A chair. A chair has a dharma, right? A simple dharma. You sit on it and it supports you, right? Now, some of these chairs sometimes get damaged, you know. If Chad sits down in the chair and boom, it collapses, it's not Chad's fault. It's that stupid chair is not performing its proper dharma, you see? So, huh? See, this is it's my fault, you know. But the point is that so what's the dharma of the soul? That's the real key. What is our actual dharma, you see? And that's, ultimately, it's devotional service. That's described in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I won't get into that right now. But Arjuna is confused about his dharma. Karpa nidosho pahata swadharma. Now his swadharma means that which is his natural tendency because he's a kshatriya. He's a great fighter. And that's what the whole varna in the varnashram is. You remember in grade school, I had this several times in several grades, they would give you aptitude tests. Well, what is this person? Is he good with his hands? You know, can he be a good shudra and builder? Or is he good with his brain, you know, like that? So that's the same idea with the varna and ashram. That we have the quality of a shudra is that he doesn't really have that much of a brain, but he can be taught to be a good laborer and a very important element of society. But then there are the intellectuals who become the Brahmins, the teachers, and they have a certain role to play, of course, and the Kshatriyas, who are not only fighters, but also administrators and rulers. They have charisma like that. These are all, positive. And then the Vaishyas, who are good at making money, or farming, that's the basic thing. So that's the Varna. But then there's also the spiritual side, which is the ashram. And without the ashram, the Varna doesn't make any sense. So the ashram is a progressive development of your spiritual nature and spiritual culture. And, the brahmacharis, okay, the celibate students, they've been trained in the guru's ashram, and they become menial servants. Even if you're the son of a king or the prince, you take that menial position and learn humility, So, I don't want to get too far afield. So, in the second chapter, which is the beginning of Krishna's instructions, he starts with this basic principle, Natvevaham jatanasam. Never did I not exist, nor you, there are all these fighters, nor in the future shall any ever cease to exist. Whoa! What do you mean? Arjun says, we're contemporaries. I was born in 25 years ago, whatever it is, 30 years, and then eventually I'm going to die. And Krishna says, no, you're not. Jayate mriyate va kadachan. He ends that instruction with this key verse. For the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. The soul doesn't come into being, is not coming into being, will not come into being in the future. All the souls that ever existed exist now, and they'll always exist. You see? And then the final line, which is appropriate on the battlefield, Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Hanyate means to kill, or die by being killed. When the body is killed, the soul is not killed. And the body can be killed also just by disease or old age or whatever. So the point is, we live forever. And we'll have a future life. So the question is, what can we do now to make the best future life? And the Bhagavad Gita proceeds on that. Now in this chapter, Krishna is giving the stark contrast between the godly qualities and godly behavior and demonic behavior. And now he's winding up and he's saying, well, here's the result of cultivating the godly qualities. Here's the result of cultivating the demonic qualities. So we're at that point in this chapter. There's a kind of a climax at the end here. So he's described these three gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed. So those are all based on bodily needs and the sense gratification, right? Every sane person should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. How can one give them up? Because there's such forces in our heart. The materialist can't all automatically say, okay, I'm not going to desire this, desire that. The desires are there deep in the heart. But Krishna consciousness, beginning with the chanting of the holy names, is a systematic means for purifying the desires. We're not going to be like the impersonalists and just void out. And that's where the nirvishesha, shunya, the nirvishesha means no details, no varieties. You go, let me merge into the Brahman, no body, no mind, no nothing, I am that I am. And what's so great about it? No birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. Oh, that's all that is. You can't be happy just with that, It's like getting out of the hospital. You've been in the hospital a long time, right? You're in an accident, you're in traction, you're in the hospital for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. When am I going to get out of here? This is great. And finally they release you, you have your canes or whatever it is. And then you say, I'm out of the hospital. So you just sit down on the curb and say, I'm free, No, you try to take up some of your old life. That's the point. So our old life, our original life, our real life is the life in the spiritual world. We've long forgotten that, and we've been living in this world, which is a perverted reflection, a beautiful metaphor Prabhupada came up with, and which means that this world is based on the spiritual world. Anything here is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Just like eating. Okay, we eat and enjoy. But in the spiritual world, everything is alive. We're eating prasadam, or remnants of Krishna's prasadam, or whatever, and it's a loving act. We prepare it with love, we offer it with love, we partake of it in love, and we share it with others, you see? It's not just, okay, let's go to the restaurant, give me another hamburger. Yeah, man. Right? It's an animalistic act, practically, isn't it? So that degrades us. Especially if you're, eating meat, you don't know how degrading that is. So everything we do, even in sex life, the real, conjugal relationship. It's all very pure. It's based on love. The gopis why are they decorating themselves so nicely? Just to please Krishna. So he'll be happy to see them beautiful. And then when he says he sees them so beautiful, he becomes pleased and more beautiful, and they become more ecstatic and more beautiful. And there's a big the contest, who can please the other, with, like that. So that's real life, and it's far away from lust, anger, and greed. Greed is completely empty. Although, and I'll share this with you, this is a prayer from the Pajabali. Pajabali is Rupa Goswami's own nectar file. There's 400 verses in there. There's a few of them by him. This is where the Shikshastika first appears, scattered throughout. Krishna's Kaviraj took them all together and put into the Shikshastika that we know. But this verse is a prayer by, I forget who it was by, probably anonymous. Many of the devotees were very humble. They didn't even sign the verse. But it was so nice that Rupa Goswami accepted it. I put it into a little poem that goes, Vichayani, Vichayani, Vichinchani, Punak Punaha. Kripanasa Dhanani, Vatvanamani Bhavantuna. So miser is the personification of greed, right? He just, if he's not making money, he's just counting his money, right? That's the idea. So compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So greed is good when it's greed for service to Krishna. In fact, this is a verse by Ramananda Roy, which he spoke to, I think, Lord Chaitanya when they had the conversation in Madhya Lila chapter 8. And it's included in the Bhakti Samhita Sindhu, so it's got to be important. So he talks about the importance of greed. And he says like this, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikutopi labhyate tatta laulyam abimulyam ekalam janma koti sukatayana labhyate. Very important verse. Prabhupada took that first line and turned it into this famous phrase, which I think you all know, Krishna consciousness. This is the origin of that phrase, Krishna consciousness. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. Mati is your mind absorbed in Krishna Bhakti Rasa, means the mellows of serving Krishna, in love. So this is our goal. They will constantly be experiencing that relation with Krishna. So kriyatam yadikutopi labhyate. So if you can buy it, you should buy it, But you have to have the right price, the mulyam. So what is the mulyam? Tattva laulyam api mulyam ekalam. The one mulyam is your laulyam, is your greed for it, your ardent desire for it. Because most, in material world, nobody has a desire for it. What's that? Just give me this, give me that, something material. No. So developing that desire for it, that is the whole process of sadhana bhakti, beginning with chanting the holy name. The whole thing is, if you just agree that to chant, even if you don't know what it means or anything, but you hear the name, the more you concentrate and actually hear the sound, the more that, Krishna is there in the name. That's inconceivable, but we have to, Krishna is the name. So he's doing the purification. Read the Ishopanishad, right? I forget the verse, I never learned it, but it says that he is the supremely pure and the purifier, Krishna. So just by association through the sound, that's the key. Don't put the book down there where we sit. If you want, you can put it on the shelf. If you want. That automatically purifies the soul. That's the Chaita Darpada Marjana. And the more you know, you strengthen your intelligence by hearing the Shastra and trying to follow, then the more that you'll appreciate everything about Krishna, including the holy name. And you'll be more attracted. So that's how the process works. So here he's saying that every sane man, right? Everyone who is sane, what is it? Should give these up. Every sane man, every sane person should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And what happens if we read 22? If you are able to escape them, then one performs as conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. Prabhupada says how careful we should be to avoid these, rules and regulations for different castes. So how do we know what those rules and regulations? This is where the Shastra comes in. You see, we learn from the scripture like Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the words of God and His pure devotees. So we have these three sources of knowledge that we should rely on. Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, you see. So Guru has to be our own, there's two kinds of gurus. There's the initiating guru, you see, very important to come to that point. And the instructing guru. Just like, forgive me, I'm in that role, you know, just by giving this class for like 40 years or whatever it's been. So, but I'm basically just trying to explain what's on the book. So it's really Srila Prabhupada, who is all of our guru, instructing guru. That's very important. Because the model of Arjuna, he tried to figure it all out on his own, and he gave up. But he took the right step. He said, okay, then you instruct me, Krishna. I trust in your words. And finally, what's the conclusion of all of the Bhagavad Gita? Krishna says, now you do what you want. I'm not going to force you. So Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava. I will do as you say. In other words, I will fight in the battle. Even though he had so many material reasons not to fight. So if you give up these gates and that, what do? You perform acts conducive to self-realization, and thus gradually attain the supreme destination. And we find out what those acts are from hearing, from reading, which is another kind of hearing, you see, the pure words of Krishna and his pure devotee, who is nothing but giving it in a way that we can best understand it and absorb it. So now let's go on to the climactic 2 verses of this chapter, which are really important. Yakshasta vidamutrija vartate kamakarataha nasasiddhim avapnoti nasukang naparam gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. Purport. As described before, the Shastra Vidhi, or the direction of the Shastra, is given to the different castes and orders of human society. Everyone is expected to follow these rules and regulations. If one does not follow them and acts whimsically according to his lust, greed, and desire, then he never will be perfect in his life. In other words, a man may theoretically know all these things, but if he does not apply them in his own life, then he is to be known as the lowest of mankind. In the human form of life, a living entity is expected to be sane and to follow the regulations given for elevating his life to the highest platform. But if he does not follow them, then he degrades himself. But even if he follows the rules and regulations and moral principles and ultimately does not come to the stage of understanding the Supreme Lord, then all his knowledge becomes spoiled. And even if he accepts the existence of God, if he does not engage himself in the service of the Lord, his attempts are spoiled. In the service of the Lord. Therefore, one should gradually raise himself to the platform of Krishna consciousness and devotional service. It is then and there that he can attain the highest perfectional stage, not otherwise. The word kamakarataha is very significant. A person who knowingly violates the rules and acts in lust. A person who knowingly violates the rules acts in lust. He knows that this is forbidden, but still he acts. This is called acting whimsically. He knows that this should not be done, but still he does not do it. He knows that this should be done, but still he does not do it. Therefore he is called whimsical. Such persons are destined to be condemned by the Supreme Lord. Such persons cannot have the perfection which is meant for the human life. The human life is especially meant for purifying one's existence, and one who does not follow the rules and regulations cannot purify himself, nor can he attain the real stage of happiness. So this is a very sobering. This is, you know, it's constantly, it's either or. What are we going to do? You know, we have free will in the human form of life to a certain extent, you see. And that free will means that using our intelligence, we can decide to go this path or that path. Or we can really kind of disregard the intelligence and just act on the basis of our animal nature, the lower self. So it's the higher self controlling the lower self, which we learned back in the 3rd chapter. You remember Arjuna asked the critical question, what is it that seems to force us to do things against our own will that damage us? You know. So what do you think the answer is? Lust, kamesha, krodesha, rajuga. that is born out of Rajogun, of the mode of passion, and later transformed into anger. So these are two of the enemies. Because why do you become angry? Because lust is unlimited, but you're always frustrated. You can never really, even if you satisfy your desires, eventually you have to stop because there's limits to the senses, you see. And especially if you try and you want something, you know, I got it last time, but now, you know, someone else grabs it or you can't afford it, and you become angry, you know, and then, okay, I'll just steal it, you know. And then you're in prison, then you're really in trouble. And we're in prison now. This is prison. Durga. Durga means you can't go. And we're in prison by our own mind, by our own material desires and low character. So to get out of that prison, we have to surrender to the ultimate lord of the prison, Krishna, or his representative, who also is very eager to get us out of the prison. Because even while living in the material world, you can be free of the material bondage by Krishna consciousness. And we see that by the great Acharya like Srila Prabhupada. He wasn't at all pulled and pushed by, you know, the modes of nature. He was always in the mode of pure goodness, you know. And whatever he did for pleasing Krishna, and especially he dedicated his life to giving us a chance to be Krishna conscious, which is the most pleasing thing that we can do for Krishna, as he says at the end of this chapter. So now the question. So here comes the importance of Shastra. One who disregards the Shastra Vidhi, the instructions of Shastra, and simply continues to act according to Kama, then he hasn't got the message of this chapter or the message of this book, and doesn't get perfection, doesn't get happiness, and cannot achieve the supreme goal. So now the final verse, which is key to everything. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. Karya Karya Vivastitao. Gyatva Shastra Vedanoktam Karma Kartam Yarhasi. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Purport. As stated in the 15th chapter, all the rules and regulations of the Vedas are meant for knowing Krishna. This famous verse 15:15. If one understands Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita and becomes situated in Krishna consciousness, engaging himself in devotional service, he has reached the highest perfection of knowledge offered by the Vedic literature. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made this process very easy. He asked people simply to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and to engage in the devotional service of the Lord and eat the remnants of foodstuff offered to the deity. One who is directly engaged in all these devotional activities is to be understood as having studied all Vedic literature. He has come to the conclusion perfectly. Of course, for the ordinary persons who are not in Krishna consciousness, who are not engaged in devotional service, what is to be done and what is not to be done must be decided by the injunctions of the Vedas. One should act accordingly without argument. That is called following the principles of Shastra or Scripture. Shastra is without the four principal defects that are visible in the conditioned soul: imperfect senses, the propensity for cheating, certainty of committing mistakes, and certainty of being illusioned. These four principal defects in conditioned life disqualify one from putting forth rules and regulations. Therefore, the rules and regulations as described in the Shastra, being above these defects, are accepted without alteration by all great saints, acharyas, and great souls. In India, there are many parties of spiritual understanding, generally classified as two, the impersonalist and the personalist. Both of them, however, lead their lives according to the principles of the Vedas. Without following the principles of the scriptures, one cannot elevate himself to the perfectional stage. One who actually, therefore, understands the purport of the Shastras is considered fortunate. In human society, aversion to the principles of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all fall-downs. That is the greatest offense of human life. I'm going to read that again. In human society, aversion to the principles of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all fall-downs. Therefore, Maya, the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always giving us trouble in the shape of the threefold miseries. This material energy is constituted of the three modes of material nature. One has to raise himself at least to the mode of goodness before the path to understanding the Supreme Lord can be opened. Without raising oneself to the standard of the mode of goodness, one remains in ignorance and passion, which are the cause of demoniac life. Those in the modes of passion and ignorance deride the scriptures, deride the holy man, and deride the proper understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They disobey the instructions of the spiritual master, and they do not care for the regulations of the scriptures. In spite of hearing the glories of devotional service, they are not attracted. Thus, they manufacture their own way of elevation. These are some of the defects of human society which lead to the demoniac status of life. If, however, one is able to be guided by a proper and bona fide spiritual master who can lead one to the path of elevation to the higher stage, then one's life becomes successful. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of divine and demoniac natures. Okay, give me a second here. Got a technical issue. My battery's running out over here. Plug that in. Maybe that'll help. Okay, so this is the the choice we have. It's an either-or situation, and that's the point of this verse. Therefore, after everything that's been said in the chapter, one should accept the Shastra as pramana. Now, this word pramana is very important. Pramana, we're always accepting pramana. Pramana means as an authority that we accept as to what to do and what not to do. Now, for many people, the pramana has come back down to mean basically their own senses, whatever is pleasing to me, because I ate that before and it was pleasing, so I'll eat it again, pleasing, even though maybe poisoning you, you're getting sick and everything, but I don't care. It feels good now, So this is the shreyas and prayas, prayas. Too much prayas and no more shreyas. So the idea is we need to strengthen the intelligence by hearing from authorized sources. Genuine shastras such as Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the acharya. Now what's the definition of acharya? Very important. Acharya comes from the word achara, which means behavior. So a real acharya is someone who knows the shastra, who acts according to the rules and regulations of the shastra, and who teaches the shastra. That's acharya. He knows. What is it? Learn it, live it, give it. Did you say that?
I just did the last two.
Yeah. What about the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, learn it, live it, and give it. You see? That's. Or we had the instruction of Lord Chaitanya to Nityananda and Haridas, right? Bolo Krishna, Bodha Krishna, Koda Krishna, Shiksha. Now this is what he was instructing them to instruct all the people in Navadvip. You see? So I added one other element. I put it into a poem, but I also added something, which is like the essence of the whole Hare Krishna movement. This is what happened. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. That's it. That's a framework for this whole movement. If we can just do that, and it all begins with the chanting. The chanting makes you more interested in hearing the Shastra. Oh, who is this Krishna? Is he speaking here? Let me learn. And then Krishna book. What did he do? You see. So, therefore, we have to accept the Shastra as the evidence of what to do and what not to do. And sometimes that's a little difficult, because the Shastra is saying, well, give that up, give that up, give that up. Those are the things that I loved up till now, all those things. I'm not going to even mention them, you know what they are. But so it's very hard. That's why the impersonalists are so unfortunate, because they have the give up side, but they don't have the positive side where they can experience spiritual pleasure, even in the sadhana path. This is what's so important, is that Krishna consciousness is so wonderful that even if you just wander into the kirtan and you start, chanting and hearing, you're experiencing something. It's planting a seed that you may not even know what's going on. It's let me go back, let me try that, go to that Hare Krishna temple again. That was really interesting. And especially if you get a book, because if your intelligence is starting to be purified by hearing through reading, then the seed is planted, and if you're fortunate enough to chant regularly, then that will water the seed. And that means, you know, then you'll choose, well, what to do. You know, what, you have a certain amount of time and energy, you know. And, well, okay, let me, you know, let's check out that Hare Krishna temple again. Or without that, they said, all right, let's go to the movies, you know, or whatever else people do, you know. So accepting the authority. Now, one other point I want to make, and then we can open up. The very word Shastra and Shishya, they're related. The same root. When I talk about the root of the word Dharma is Dri, that which supports us, who is our very nature. So the root of the word Shastra is Shash. Shash. It's the root of the word Shastra. It's the root of the word Shastra. Notice how important those long A's and short A's are. And it's the root of the word Shishya. Now, Shastra is a weapon. You can be controlled. Shastra has he can control you. So it means to control. And then Shastra, of course, is the scripture, which we are meant to agree to be controlled by. And Shishya is someone who agrees to be controlled by the words of the Guru. You see? So that's really the significance. And in taking initiation, you take vows, you know. And if you're a decent person, you take a vow. It's a serious thing. You know, if you break vow, then it's not good. So this is tatsmat shastram pramanam te. We have to accept the Shastra as our evidence for what to do and what not to do, what is proper to do and what to avoid. And if you remember the 6 processes of surrender, it begins with that. It says anukulyasya sankalpa patikulyasya varjanam rakshishyatiti vishvaso goptadvevananam tata atmanikshepa karpani shadvida shadanagati. So the first one is to accept those things that are favorable for Krishna consciousness. And it's important that that's the first thing. Even if you're eating meat and doing all these things, at least come to the kirtan chant and help clean up the floor. You know? And that those are all positive. And they will help give you the strength to give up the other things. Because that's the second thing. Varjanam. So in any process, you know, even a material path, you want to become, I usually use the same analogy, forgive me, a Olympic champion pole vaulter, you know. So you have to first of all find a teacher, a trainer, and you say, well, do it this way, don't do it that way. Okay, thanks a lot, because I was doing it the wrong way, and like that, right? And then here's how you eat. You can't, you know, get fat, so you have to eat. This is your diet, and this is, you know, all these. So your whole life, you know, because your whole goal is to get that Olympic medal. So do's and don'ts, it's the same thing. And it goes on like that. We don't have time to, but then to be in that mood, to be constant, to be confident of Krishna's protection. So that's real surrender. You know, this is a perfect example. Who's a great example? Prahlad Maharaj, Haridas Thakur, you know. And Krishna's maintenance also, that you don't have to spend all your time, you know, worrying about how you're going to maintain yourself. You just serve Krishna and have faith, and, you know, Krishna provides. I know this is what you're struggling with now, but you'll see. Anyway, any questions or comments? Then we can have a few poems for dessert.
Hare Krishna. So how are we really sure that the Vedas are really what was reported by Krishna? Because I mean, they're really old, and that happened with the Bible. That, you know, orally going on, things get kind of changed by human element, those in power. So how? Because sometimes I read and some things resonate like absolutely true. They speak to my heart, and some others I'm like, doesn't, like the famous passage that you don't like, the one about women less intelligent, etc. Yeah. So how do we know that it's really the original Krishna spoken, and throughout all these years things don't get changed?
Well, you know, well, this is where the faith in the Acharya has to come in. In other words, who am I? You know, when you become, like we're coming up on Friday on the appearance or disappearance, I think it's appearance of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a very important day, you know. And Srila Prabhupada, you know, he was raised as a Vaishnava. Of course, we know that, you know, he was wonderful, his father and so forth. But he was a businessman. He had a wife, I think one child already, one child on the way, at least, you know. But and he almost didn't get to meet Bhaktisiddhanta. It's an incredible story, you know, because his father had always welcomed in. Anyone who was dressed as sannyasi, come on in, take lunch, you know, he'd accept it. And Prabhupada thought, wait a minute, is he really sannyasi? Because he saw one guy, he would just put on the clothes and go and beg, and then at night he would take them off. And so he knew he was kind of, you know, he was doubtful. So his friend comes in, no, he's different. You'll be like, I said, no, I've seen him all, you know. So they're arguing out in front of Ultadanga, you know, like, and finally Prabhupada says, okay, because he was his friend. Without that, you know, we wouldn't be sitting here. You know? So he goes up to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and anyway, it's an incredible meeting, and immediately Prabhupada is very impressed because he's very austere and pure and knowledgeable and like that. And so he comes under the influence of Bhaktisiddhanta. So now we look at our who is in our parampara. You know, you read the list at the end of the. So all these, you know, of course, Lord Krishna is there, Lord Chaitanya is in the parampara, but we have Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and all of these realized souls, and of course Srila Prabhupada. So this is a test of faith, because they're all saying, you know, they're all, you know, following the Vedas, as you say, the Bhagavatam. And we shouldn't really worry too much about the Vedas as a whole, because we can get really, you know, out of bounds. The ones that we've been given, you know, the Puranas, especially Bhagavad Purana, but also others, Padma Purana and others, and Mahabharata, of course, with the Bhagavad Gita in it, and the writings of the Goswamis, which following Lord Chaitanya's, you know. So these are our guides. And admittedly, there are things in there, as you mentioned, that may challenge us. Well, that doesn't seem right, you know, like that. So we have to be able to say, well, okay, I don't see how that's absolute yet, but let me just put that aside and really meditate on those things which do make some sense and which I can really have faith in. Because we have to come to the point of taking up the process seriously, and which means accepting, you know, the dues, you know, that may be difficult, and giving up some of the donuts that we really don't want to give up. And then we can get more, and we'll get more mercy from Krishna from within, and he'll give us more strength and more realization that this is really the proper thing to do. So I know it's hard. There's certain, you know, difficult things we have to get over to really surrender. But the more we see you in class, we know that we're very happy that that's still going on. All right, we only have 5 minutes, so can I just give a little poem? Otherwise, I wouldn't feel that we really completed the class. Okay, so let's see. You've heard them all already, so. All right, so this is the first verse of the Tribhangi Chanda Stava, which are 5 verses written in this meter that kind of has a threefold thing, beat to it. So here's the first verse. Yamala jana bandana mashita dandana mahigandana ganalasa badam. Pasupala padandana mabasata kandata matisundana madavindakadam. Vadagoba vadu jana vizichita pujana maluku jana namaveno dadam. Smadana bavachakshana makalabalakshana tanalakshana matidakshadadam. You broke the 2 Himalajun trees. You loved to delight your pure devotees. You crushed the pride of the Kali snake with your prancing dance in the Yamuna lake. You're the coward's prince and the life and soul. To serve thee with love is their only goal. In the caves you meet the gopis fair and enjoy sweet loving pastimes there. You're dashing, clever, and most debonair. Your lotus hands give blessings rare. To worship you again and again is the way of the wise of the cowherd men. When the gopis hear the flute you hold, their passion grows 1,000-fold. Of amorous choking you're the king. Indeed, you're skilled at everything. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, time to adjourn for kirtan. So there's 4 more of those. 4 more of those, and in further classes I'll give you more. That's the only one I have memorized like that. Okay, so we'll begin chapter 17.